Hello everyone. I welcome all of you to YuktMind's unique initiative 10 minutes and newspaper done. So even if some of you have missed reading newspaper in past 10 days, you can finish that bulk in approximately 100 minutes, which is 1 to 2 hours of discussion through this initiative, whereas other educators take 1 hour daily on one newspaper. So let us save your precious time, and you can also download the well curated PDF notes of the gist from our Telegram channel or website Daily Current Affairs tab. First news, President Draupadi Murmu paid tribute to the freedom fighter Alluri Sitarama Raju on the occasion of his 125th birth anniversary celebrations. President described Alluri Sitarama Raju's struggle against injustice and exploitation as a proud chapter in India's freedom struggle. Now, this news comes under the topic of the freedom struggle, important contributors from different parts of the country. He is being remembered as a tribal warrior, and it is his true identity. He kept fighting for the rights of the tribal society till his martyrdom, she said. Now let us throw some light on life of Alluri Sitaram Raju. Alluri Sitaram Raju lived from 1897 to 1924, that is very short life. And he was an Indian revolutionary, tribal revolutionary who waged an armed campaign against British colonial rule in India. Born in present day Andhra Pradesh, he was involved in opposing the British in response to the 1882 Madras Forest Act that effectively restricted the free movement of Adivasis in their forest habitats and prevented them from practicing their traditional form of agriculture called Podu, which threatened their very way of life. Rise in discontent towards the British colonial rule in the backdrop of the non cooperation movement led to the Rampa Rebellion, in which Alluri Sitaram Raju played the major role as its leader. Mustering combined forces of tribals and other sympathizers to the cause, he engaged in guerrilla campaigns against the Britishers across the border regions in the present day Andhra and Odisha states in India. He was given the title Manyam Virudu, which is translated to hero of the jungle by the local people for his heroic exploits. Now, you should remember that the name of the rebellion he participated in was Rampa, his area, which is Andhra and Odisha, and the title given to him, which can be asked in the prelims exam. Second news, leptospirosis is an infectious disease and is a potentially fatal zoonotic bacterial disease that tends to have large outbreaks after heavy rain or flooding. Now, what is a zoonotic disease? They are diseases which can be transmitted easily between animals and humans. For example, coronavirus. Now, this news comes under the topic of issues relating to development and management of health sector under GS paper 2. The disease is more prevalent in warm, humid countries and in both urban and rural areas. The burden of leptospirosis is expected to increase in the future as the urban poor population in many tropical countries increases, even as sanitary infrastructure falls short. Now we know that Amrut scheme was targeting to improve the sanitary infrastructure in the cities. Now, what causes this disease? The disease is caused by a bacterium called Leptospira interrogans or Leptospira. It is a contagious disease in animals but is occasionally transmitted to humans in certain environmental conditions. The carriers of the disease can be either wild or domestic animals like rodents, cattle, pigs, and dogs, and infected animals can continue to excrete the bacteria into their surroundings for a few months but also sometimes up to several years. Now, which people are at risk? Humans become part of the cycle when they come in direct contact with the urine or indirectly through soil and water that contains Leptospira bacteria. The disease is also considered an occupational hazard for people working in agricultural settings with animals or in sanitary services that bring them into contact with contaminated water. Recreational activities in contaminated lakes and rivers are also reported to increase the risk of disease. Now, what are the symptoms? The severity of the disease ranges from a mild flu like illness to being life threatening. It mimics those of dengue, malaria, and hepatitis. In milder cases, it can be onset of fever, chills, and headache, or no symptoms at all. In severe cases, it can be dysfunction of multiple organs like liver, kidneys, lungs, and the brains. There are several misconceptions around the disease, like the disease has been called Ilijwara in Kannada and Elipani in Malayalam, both meaning rat fever. But this usage has fed the common belief that rats are the sole cause of the disease, which is not true. Now, how to prevent leptospirosis? It can be controlled by the concept called One Health approach. One Health is an interdisciplinary approach that recognizes the interconnections between the health of humans, animals, plants, and their shared environment, that is, looking at the planet or nature in totality. People who frequently interact with animals or their urine should exercise particular caution by using personal protective equipments like gloves and boots. Also, preventing animals from getting infected is important so as to limit farmers' economic losses because the disease can cause reproductive failures in pigs and cattle. Now the third news is continuing with the same topic, that is health sector of GS paper 2. Here there is an appeal from the coordinator of Chennai Declaration on Antimicrobial Resistance seeking emergency use authorization for antibiotics in phase 3 trials or licensed antibiotics from other countries. He is quoting a story where a life of young 18-year-old patient was saved when the doctors decided to use an antibiotic named cefepime or zidebactam undergoing phase 3 trials. Now, this extraordinary case underscores the urgent importance of granting emergency use authorization for antibiotics currently in phase 3 trials or licensed from other countries. India has already demonstrated remarkable progress in granting EUA for COVID-19 vaccines. By granting emergency use authorization for cefepime zidebactam, an Indian innovation, and cefiderocol, a globally recognized antibiotic, we can strengthen our arsenal against drug-resistant infections. Fourth news, Shanghai Cooperation Organization calls for multipolar world order as Iran as its ninth and latest member joins the grouping. Now this news comes under the topic of regional groupings involving India. Now SCO grouping comprises China, India, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. You should remember these countries and it can come in the prelims questions. The agreements signed include the New Delhi Declaration outlining areas of cooperation between SCO countries, a joint statement on countering radicalization, and one on digital transformation where India offered to share expertise on digital payment interfaces. In a reference to sanctions on Russia and Iran, SCO members jointly criticized non UN sanctions as incompatible with the principles of international law, which have a negative impact on other countries. SCO members also agreed to explore the use of national currencies for payments within the grouping, which would circumvent international dollar based payments. India opposed the BRI over its inclusion of projects in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. The Delhi Declaration listed a number of global challenges like new and emerging conflicts, turbulence in the markets, supply chain instability, climate change, and the COVID-19 pandemic. SU member states confirmed their commitment to formation of a more representative, democratic, just, and multipolar world order based on the universally recognized principles of international law, multilateralism, equal, joint, indivisible, comprehensive, and sustainable security, cultural and civilizational diversity, mutually beneficial and equal cooperation of states with a central coordinating role of the UN. Fifth news, India lodges protest with Canada over Khalistan posters. Now, this news comes under the bilateral relations between India and Canada under GS paper 2. The Ministry of External Affairs summoned the High Commissioner of Canada and lodged a protest after campaigners for Khalistan put out online posters targeting Indian diplomats in Canada. Sixth news, the center has decided to help build infrastructure in border areas to combat child trafficking and help in rehabilitation and protection of victims. Now, this news comes under the topic of welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of the population by the center. As part of this initiative, the Women and Child Development Ministry will provide financial assistance to the states and union territories along the border areas. The main source countries are Nepal, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, from where women and girls are trafficked in the lure of a better life, jobs, and good living conditions on this side. The trafficking victims in the border areas will also be produced before the Child Welfare Committees, that is CWCs, to declare them fit for availing sponsorship as per the Mission Vatsalya scheme guidelines, and accordingly, the states and UTs will be requested to do the needful. Mission Vatsalya is the central scheme focused on the protection and welfare of children. Till now, the Women and Child Development Ministry has been providing financial assistance to all states and UTs under the Nirbhaya Fund to set up and strengthen anti-human trafficking units, that is AHTU, in every district of the country. Now, seventh news is an opinion article of an expert on GST, which comes under the topic of mobilization of resources in Indian economy under GS paper 3. Marking the occasion of 6 years of GST, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitaraman emphasized that the GST has moved the country towards a unified market from a situation where each state mandated different indirect tax structures and procedures. The revenue department's crackdown on fake e-invoicing and other techniques deployed by tax evaders may compel the few outliers to fall in line. Appreciating the GST, the finance minister said that tightening compliance and the post-pandemic rebound in economic activity have helped improve revenues from the GST. GST revenues crossed 1.6 lakh crore, only the fourth such occasion in its 72 months existence. Now, what are the points of reform possible? For taxpayers and consumers, much remains to be done till the GST can be considered a good simple tax. Dispute resolution remains a pain point for industry, with GST appellate tribunal still not set up. So there is a need for rate rationalization exercise or the inclusion of excluded items such as electricity, petroleum and real estate, without which the efficiency gains from the GST remains constricted. We have a UPSC prelims past year question of 2019 where we have two statements, and which of them above are correct. So the answer is D, that is neither one nor two. So the first statement is wrong because High Court do have the jurisdiction on the central laws, though it was taken temporarily by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976, but later restored by 43rd Amendment Act of 1977. And Supreme Court, second statement, Supreme Court do have the power to relook at the amendment brought by the Parliament under Basic Structure Doctrine. Thank you for watching. Let us know your feedback in the comments and keep visiting our website, Telegram, Instagram and Twitter.